Hello and welcome to Bob Holzner Fine Art. This is the slideshow for my artwork, and I chose the patio theater for the background as this was the first extensive 3D art piece that I did where I actually built the marquee and put lights in it so the marquee actually lights up. I used some photos in it and got some other little goodies in there, some wood paneling and stuff. It's a fun work and some hidden surprises in it as well. It's acrylic on canvas. This piece is called Cogs and Cogs, and it's in my steampunk series of 3D art. And I got some auto parts on the left-hand bottom side that give it a nice little steampunk feel to it. And I mix some real gears in there with the painted gears. The background is like a watercolor process using metallic paints, where they're put on very lightly with a lot of water so that they blend in real cool to get a really neat metallic background. This piece is called Delicate Arch, and I wanted to experiment with sculpting. So this is my first foray into sculpting in my 3D art. And so I sculpted the actual Delicate Arch and attached it to a canvas and painted the background. And I actually added some diorama, like vegetation, bushes and hedges and kind of stuff to give it a more realistic feel to the background. And this painting is called Mad Steampunker, and it's based upon a costume actually made by Alexander Schleichler. And you can find his website at steampunker.de. He gave me permission to base this art piece upon his creative work. I added some 3D stuff, the hose, oxygen mask, and PCI valve there in the front. It's a fun piece. I like this one, and I also used a metallic background on this one. And this extensive 3D art piece is the Munster Mansion, as many of you may remember from the 60s TV show, The Munsters. And this is a lot of 3D stuff on there. I got a moon in the background that was taken from a buddy of mine, Dave Otto, in Texas, the full moon. And I built the porch out of wood. I got wood paneling on the house. I built the fence there with styrofoam, and I got the sidewalk in there, and I actually put some real trees and bushes and some fake ones in there too. I built that tree on the right-hand side from real limbs from trees, that I found on the sidewalk, and got some real leaves I crumbled up to be, leaves on the ground to give it like a fall feel to it. It's a very fun piece. I gave this painting to my brother Ron and his wife Carol. In this 3D art piece called Tiger Den, I wanted to use a process to use realistic looking water. I used a process many model train set enthusiasts use to create realistic water. It's an epoxy process that actually makes it real deep and you can see into it. It looks like real water, dries real clear. It's really great. And I put some sticks and rocks in there, and I put some rocks around the actual Tiger Den. I cut a hole in the canvas, put a cave back there, and actually have some of the realistic water going back into that. The waterfall, I actually used a silicone like bathtub sealer, comes in a tube. And the face of the tiger I sculpted out so the nose and cheeks come out, and I used fishing line for the whiskers. I actually found two of my cat's whiskers that fell out and used those in my painting. So my cat is part of this painting. I also used a couple of his claws for the claws of the tiger. Fun piece. Here's a different angle from my patio painting, which gives you a little bit more perspective of the marquee as it sticks out. And again, I have lights in the actual patio letters to give it the gaslight, neon light look to it. I got lights underneath the marquee as well as lights inside the marquee behind the patio name, and lights around the marquee on the sides as well. This is one of my non-3D art pieces. It's the Great Wall of China at sunset. Got some cool blending of colors in it. I really like the colors in this. It's acrylic on canvas. This 3D art piece is called Eagle Canyon. It's one of my first 3D art pieces and one of my first experiments trying to get realistic water. On this one I used a process where I used Elmer's glue and mixed it with water. I watered it down and add some color to it in different spots to give it a water look feel to it. And I used some cotton for clouds in there, and the eagle on the right I used actual real feathers on his wing and on his head. And I think there's an acorn in there and some pine needles, and as well as a bunch of rocks and twigs to give the river a realistic look to it. This is one of my spiritual themed art pieces called The Empty Tomb. And it has a little bit of 3D stuff on there. I have some stones glued on there, and I have some gravel and sand on the bottom. I use some metallic stuff in there to give it some brilliance in the cave. And this is one of the first ones that I was really experimenting with the different trees and the different ways to do trees in the background. And I gave this painting to my sister Judy and her husband John. This is another one of my spiritual themed paintings. It's Greater Chicago Church in Oak Park. And 3D aspects on this. I got some bushes and trees on the left hand side. I actually used a photo of the sign in front of the church and the actual street signs for like no parking. And I have some metal tubing on the right hand side for the pipes that lead to the power lines. This I donated to Greater Chicago Church, and it can be viewed in their coffee shop at 705 West Jackson in Oak Park. Here's another one of my non-3D art pieces called Sunset on Hubbard Street. And I actually took a photo looking out the window from where my Arch Church was meeting, Greater Chicago Arch Church at the time. And then I used the photo for reference and painted this during the church service. This is Sunset on Hubbard Street. It's acrylic on canvas. Here's another view of the patio theater and the 3D marquee. And this is from the other side. And it shows some cool stuff. There's some cool stuff underneath. I got the Star Trek posters in the wood display boxes on each side of the doors underneath the marquee. And I used some cotton for the clouds. And I used photos for the storefront. There's a lot of writing in there. I got a nice little surprise up in the clouds, if you can find it. Here's another one of my 3D art pieces called Hubbard Street Lofts. I donated this to the operator, Joe, who operates these lofts for artists. And this is where my church, Greater Chicago Arts Church, used to meet on Sunday nights. And the 3D aspects in it, I have a car on the right-hand side that I actually cut the front end off of. And I use cord for the power lines. And I used some photos in there. I used a photo for the actual Hubbard Street Loft sign that's on the building, as well as the 1821 address inside the loading dock area, as well as the front door. And then there's a little sign next to it that was for our church when we met. Acrylic on canvas. Here's another one of my steampunk series paintings called Rust on Blue Metal. I used metallic paint for the blue background, and then I used some matte colors to put the rust over the front of it. Acrylic on canvas. This 3D art piece is called Wolf Den, and I did this one before the Tiger Den, and I was going to actually do the cave in the back, but I had problems with that process, so I had to scrap that idea, and I didn't use the realistic water. But I did put the rocks in where the water area is, and I put some logs in there, some twigs in there for logs, and I did do the process with the waterfall, with the silicone tubing, and I put some rocks around the actual wolf den itself. This is acrylic on canvas. Here's another view of my 3D art piece, Greater Chicago Church. I actually put a working light in the light pole that's in front of the church, and in this version I have the light actually on. Again, there's 3D bushes I put on the left-hand side and a metal pole on the right-hand side for the power conduit, whatever you want to call it. This 3D art piece is called Two Feather Peak, and I did this during church when I came back to Illinois from Wisconsin last year when I first started painting. So this is one of the first paintings I did when I was back. And there's some little 3D in there. I got a couple feathers in the lower left-hand corner, and I put some bling in the actual sun as it was setting. Here's another view of the 3D piece, Patio Theater. This one is looking more from underneath, so you can see the lights underneath the marquee. I wanted to include another front-on shot since the first one had the lettering for the beginning of the slideshow. And there's a lot of cool effects in there. I used some photos. I used a photo of the doors underneath and the two storefronts on each side and the windows. And I got some cotton for the clouds on the top. And again, there's something hidden in those clouds. So have fun. Star Trek. Live long and prosper. Here's another one of my steampunk art pieces. This is actual rust on green metal. The process I did with this one, I actually painted the whole canvas with a silver metallic color and then painted over with the green and did some scratches in it to show the silver underneath to simulate like if the actual metal was scratched and you could see the original silver that was underneath the paint. And then I put the rust spots around it too with a matte color too, so it's not shiny, as rust is pretty dull looking. And again, this is rust on green metal, acrylic on canvas.